I don't know very much about St. Patrick, but he is one of my heroes based on what I do know, apart from all the legendary stuff you read about. I've stood on a spot that St. Patrick in Ireland spoke to pagan people. I've stood there and prayed for the people of Ireland. I have prayed his prayer that he crafted many times. It's part of my regular routine. Christ before me, Christ behind me, Christ below me, Christ above, in the mouth of friend or stranger, in the place of calm or danger. There's more to it than that. I've even had just a drunk dude pray for me and my family as we were walking on the streets of Stirling, Scotland. He stumbled out of a bar. He was inebriated. And he says a greeting because he saw that we're not from there. We explained we're Canadians. And he goes, I'll tell you a joke. He tells us this joke. And I followed him all the way through, but his brogue was so strong that when he got to the punchline, it was about a pilot and a plane. And he goes, and the pilot said, everybody's not posting in there. And I have no idea what he said. And I just said, sorry, and I laughed. And he goes, I'll tell it again. And 3 times he tells this joke, 3 times over and over. And every time we lost him and couldn't tell. We were all laughing our heads off there in the middle of the busy street corner. And then I said, hey, listen, we got to go, but I'd love it if we could pray for you. And he looks at me like, do I know you? But he says, you can pray for me if I can pray for you. And this is this drunk guy. And so when he prays for us, though, he launches this St. Patrick prayer that he probably memorized when he was a kid. And the power of God was in it. And I just felt it run through me, even as he prayed. So, like I said, I don't know much about St. Patrick, but I know this, that though he was called the Apostle of Ireland, Patrick of Ireland, the Enlightener of Ireland, he wasn't Irish at all. He was born in England and lived in Bannerman, England. According to his autobiography called the Confessio, he said he was 16 when Irish pirates kidnapped him. Now, he was called the founder of Christianity in Ireland, but there was also Columba and Kildare that were also amazing saints of God, and you can read about them. He's held in high regard but across denominations, and even by a few people who love to crack a cold one in a pub on St. Paddy's Day. But as I said, in his autobiography, The Confessio, he wrote that he was actually kidnapped with a group of young men and taken to Ireland and was a slave. He was a slave for 6 years. And during that time, he grew to know the language, the Gaelic language, or Gaelic, however you like to say it. He worked as a shepherd and a keeper of livestock. He didn't know God. His father was a deacon, but he wasn't a practicing Christian. But he began to pray, and he prayed that God would save him, rescue him someday. One night he actually had a dream that God said to him, "You will go home soon, and the ship is ready." And miraculously, or by mistake, his chains fell off one time, or came off. Somehow he walked out of his slavery. He went 200 miles to the docks, and he boarded a ship. He convinced a captain to take him home to England, which he did. It was a 3-day journey, and then another journey through the wilderness until he got home, many, many miles, and even in that time almost died with the group that he was with. But he prayed, and they found a wild boar, and they ate. And so his kind of Christianity began to grow, his style of Christianity, I guess. Now in his 20s, he started to study Christianity for real and was going to become a cleric when he said he had a vision. And this vision, I'll read it to you again out of the Confessio. He was like uprooted in this vision. He said, Patrick, I saw a man coming, as it were, from Ireland, and his name was Victoricus, and he carried many letters, and he gave me one of them, and I read the heading, The Voice of the Irish. As I began the letter, I imagined at that moment that I heard the voices, those very voices of the people who were near the wood, Folkla, which is beside the western sea. And they cried out as with one voice, We appeal to you, young servant boy, to come and walk among us. Now, he couldn't escape the slavery of the providence of God or the call of God in his life. He knew he had to go back, which he did in 432 AD. He wasn't fully trained as a cleric, but he became a bishop, and he brought Christianity to the otherwise pagan countryside that he was known. There are, of course, some legendary stories about him driving the snakes out of Ireland, and then there's pushback saying there never was any snakes. I don't know. But he baptized thousands of people, thousands. And he ordained pastors and priests to lead small new communities of Christian people. He battled Druids. There's stories of him coming against witchcraft and stuff like that. He said, never before did they know of God except to serve idols and unclean things. But now they, the Irish people, have become the people of the Lord and are called the children of God. Because of his birth being not Irish, he was beaten often. He was robbed of all his belongings several times. He was put in chains. He was awaiting execution. He didn't know. There was a prophecy, actually, which is quite funny, from the Druids that said this. This is a prophecy before he got there. Across the sea will come Ad's head, crazed in the head. I won't do the accent. His cloak with hole for the head. His stick bent in the head. He will chant impieties from a table in front of his house, and the people will answer, so be it, so be it. Some of the other stories include Patrick using the shamrock, or the three-leaf clover, to describe or teach the Irish people about the Godhead, the Trinity. And then later, of course, the shamrock became a symbol of Ireland. There's also stories of his staff becoming a living tree. A variety of dates are given to the man's death. In 457, it is said that the elder Patrick died. Whether that was him or not, or relating to somebody else, they don't know for sure. Some dispute the date. One thing for sure, though, St. Patrick impacted a whole country, and later countries, and later the world. His legacy still continues, and it's impacted by Christ through him for Christ's glory. Maybe he didn't get everything right. Maybe he had some doctrines wrong, but he was serious about living his life for Jesus Christ, and he ran his race well. My question would be, what will they say about you after you're gone?